So those arpeggios, this would be a good section to do whilst doing impromptu number 4, which is the easiest impromptu. I think that those arpeggios are the most difficult part of the first impromptu. There are a few arpeggios that come before the end of the piece, but not many. Just about 14 measures of arpeggios, I think. But these arpeggios range from measure 45 to measure 73, and they're really, they take some getting used to. They do repeat sometimes though. So for example, measures 52 and 53 and 54, the exact notes are repeated in measures 71, 72 and 73. That's right at the end of the arpeggios. So those 3 measures are repeated, so that makes things a bit easier. Also, I would recommend splitting this arpeggio section into 2 relatively distinctive sections. So basically in half. So it's the first 14 bars. It's from the beginning, which is measure 41, until measure 60, and then from the second section is from measure 60 until the end, which is measure 73. So we'll split it into 2 parts. Will make it easier. Also, I think that the most difficult part, apart from the very end, which, as I've said, repeats the last 3 chords and almost 3 measures, almost 4 measures are repetitions of measures 52, 53 and 54. But just before that, there are what I would consider the most difficult measures. So measures 68, 69, they're difficult, and even measure 67 is difficult. I mean, they're sort of similar to some measures which were just before it, which is measure 60, measures 50, measures 61, 62, 63, but they're a little bit different. So it's a little bit tricky, but they're not exactly the same. So what can help there is by splitting up this whole second section into 3 further sections, each one of which begins with the right hand on the E flat, on the thumb. So that would be measure 60 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures, and then measure 65, another 5 measures until measure 70, and then there's a further 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4 measures until the end. And so if you look at those, they all begin with the, as I say, thumb on E flat, and that makes it more manageable. And you'll find that, as I've said, some of the measures are almost exactly the same as the ones that were just before, but they're not quite the same. Yeah, so when it starts on E flat, that happens 3 times, and they're more or less the same. So that can help with that second half of this arpeggio section. Okay, so hopefully that's helped. And I think this is definitely the best way to learn all 4 impromptus. I think that learning the 4th impromptu, which is the easiest, first, together with this whole arpeggio section, is particularly good because it's very different in nature, in character. I mean, this. very different to the that is actually more like the third one, which is that one. So when you've done the fourth one and that arpeggio section, which is the most difficult part of the whole first impromptu, by the way, then move on to the third impromptu, and at the same time do the march, which is just before this arpeggio section, so the first 1.5 pages of the first impromptu, because again they're very different in character. So you've got the this is very different to this sort of the rolling arpeggios of number 3 in G flat major. So I think the contrast is very important. So the contrast of the number 4 impromptu in A flat major with the arpeggio section of this impromptu, first impromptu, and then there's a big contrast between the third impromptu, which you can get to next, and the march theme. So by that time, once you finish the third impromptu, you will have finished also this march theme, and then that will roll right onto the arpeggio section, which is what you've been doing while you've been doing impromptu number 4. So you'll be able to not only play impromptus 4 and 3, which are the easiest, I think, but you also have done all the way up to here, the end of the arpeggio section. So the first, 4, 1, 2, 3, and a bit measures. Then it remains for you to do the second impromptu, which I think is a bit more difficult than the third and the fourth impromptus, but it's got an even more symmetrical sort of construction to it, except for the coda at the end. So while you're doing number 2, you can do this beautiful theme of the number 1, which is a real joy to play, and already a cathartic, sort of a typically Schubertian cathartic evocation. So by the time you finish that number 2, you will have also done this up until basically here, measure 82. So by the time you finish number 4, number 3 and number 2, and you're ready to do the most difficult, which is number 1 in C minor, you will have already done the first 81 anyway, and then the chord in 82 measures of number 1. And that makes number 1 much more doable, because you will have met the 3 main elements of the number 1. And after that, they're just repetitions in various forms of those 3 elements, basically, up until the end. And it's, I think, 11 sides of paper, 11 pages long, 11 sides long, by far the longest impromptu. And so you cut it down to about the size of the shorter impromptus, number 2 and number 4. And it's to exactly the size of number 2, actually, number 4. Which makes it much more doable. And if you're anything like me, number 1 is your least favourite impromptu, so it's something which it really helps for you to have already begun and to have done 4 pages of. Okay, so hopefully that's helped. I'm sorry for all the mistakes on those arpeggios, but they're not under the fingers yet. But I'm very glad that I can actually do it when when I need to, and I hope to be able to perfect them. And then I'm looking forward to moving on to the march, and then into the beautiful theme, and then I've got the 3 main sections. But as I say, in order to learn all 4 impromptus, I think you should go about it the way that I've said, number 4, number 3, number 2, doing at the same time those 3 sections. I've thought a lot about it, and I think that this is the best way to do it. So there we go. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.